to Year 3-4 edition of Teach Time English. So this week our theme is rivers, and so we're going to be doing verb poems all to do with rivers in English. But first things first, we need to remember what a verb is. So I've got some verbs here. So I've got I ride, I run, I swim. Now you might have done this in school, but if you haven't, there's a little recap for you. A verb is sometimes referred to as a doing word. So that just means it describes an action. So here it's describing what this person is doing, and here and here. It's saying that they are riding a bike, that they are running, and that they are swimming. They're doing something. But you're probably wondering how verbs can be turned into poems. Well, imagine you're a river. What things does a river do? So I've got one up here already. I flow. Sometimes you might have heard rivers being described as flowing, or you might have heard that rivers run. So I run. You might glitter if you were a river. Or you might shine, or you might fall, or tumble, or do lots of different things. What I want you to do now is just quickly pause the video and think of all the different things you might do if you were a river. Okay, so pause it now and think. Okay, so it was a pretty weird question, wasn't it? Imagining that you're a river and what kind of things you would do. So I've got 3 up here. You might have loads, and seeing as I can't ask you a question on YouTube, if you've got some that I'm not just about to say, then put it on the Facebook page so I can see it. So I've come up with some other ones. So I already said that rivers shine. If the sun's on them, rivers look beautiful when they're shining. Rivers fall. If you've seen a waterfall from a river, then that's quite a beautiful thing to see. You might have a river that swims. You might call yourself a swim river. Oh. You might have a river that tumbles. Okay? Or you might have lots and lots of other verbs to describe your river. But it still doesn't look like much of a poem. It just looks a bit like a mind map at the moment. But you can put all of these verbs into a poem by doing one thing. Now, this is my verb poem. I've called it I Am a River. Now, all you have to do in a verb poem, you're not worrying about rhyming or how many beats there are per line. All it has to be is every sentence has to describe something that the river is doing. So, I'll read you mine. I flow fast. So I've not only used a verb, but I've also used an adjective here, a describing word. I run through rocks. I shine in the sun. I babble and sing. I swim past trees. I carry to the sea. I ride on hills and slide down valleys. I fall down cliffs and still run on. I am a river. So, without actually doing anything fancy with rhyming and making up words, all I've done here is describe what a river does. So here I've talked about babbling and singing. Now you can use your 5 senses when you talk about a river. When you listen to a river, you might hear of something called a babbling brook. It's kind of the noise a river makes when it bubbles and it flows past you. That's called babbling. Or it might run so fast that the wind is carried through it and it sounds like it's singing. All of a sudden the river starts to make a beautiful sound as it sings past you. I like people describing rivers as swimming. I think it's quite interesting to see that people swim in rivers, but also rivers can still swim. They swim down the becks, they swim down these huge banks of rocks straight into the sea or into the lake. Rivers carry lots of things. They carry fish, they carry wildlife, they carry plants, rocks, sand. Rivers are really strong. They can carry lots of things, especially if you're near the River Arun or the River Severn. They're incredibly strong, fast-flowing rivers, so they can carry lots of things with them. I've used up here, I flow, I run. So those are pretty easy ones to guess for a river. So we already know that a river flows and that a river runs. But we've also got how it's shining. So here I've used my sight. I've used everything around the river, the nature, the sun, the light, and how it reflects on the river. I've also talked about what a river can do that you wouldn't normally think about for a river. I ride, I slide, I fall, and still run on. So, just like us on a bike, a river, it can ride down the hills. It doesn't have to be a normal verb that you're using to describe your rivers. It can be any verb as long as you can justify it. And by that I mean, well, how is a river riding? Well, here I've put it's riding on hills. If you look at rivers in valleys, you watch as they ride down the hill into the valley where it becomes a bigger river. I talked about it sliding down as well, where they go pretty fast and they bring a lot of rocks with them, so they're sliding down. Falling down cliffs, well, we all know about waterfalls, so it's falling down a cliff before running on again. And then in the end, I always like to end a poem with just one line that doesn't really match the rest of it. And so I've just put here, I've described it all here, because if we didn't have the title and the last line, we could have been talking about anything here. They don't know it's a river. We've talked about riding and sliding, babbling and singing and carrying. You wouldn't really think of a river to begin with. But because I've put the title and this last line, I am a river, it gives it a bit more power. It gives strength almost to the word river. All of these beautiful things that we didn't realise a river was doing suddenly is all culminating, it's all being grouped together into one word. So, your challenge this week is to think up as many verbs as you can for a river. If it helps, you can actually get videos of rivers on YouTube and you can watch them run and you can see what they do to give you a little bit of inspiration. Or you could, if you're running out of ideas, you could Google some doing words for rivers, but I think you might have a lot in your brains. So this week all I want you to do is come up with the poem. Think it through. It can be as long or as short as you want it to. And then next week we're going to be looking at how you can present these poems in beautiful ways. Have fun, everyone. Spend as much or as little time on this as you want to. It is completely up to you. But make it your own. Make it as inspirational and as creative as you can.